So my next question is actually for the audience. I was just curious, by a show of hands, how many people are filmmakers? Excellent, a lot, most of you. How many of you would like to be filmmakers if you aren't yet? And how many of you are just vaguely interested in filmmaker suffering? Okay, a couple of those. One of the things, well, so many of the stories here had the commonality of pivots, of plans that have to change, whether you've lost a location or whether you have to make the very hard decision of letting go, replacing an actor, which is traumatic. So my question is, is there a way to cultivate that kind of nimbleness, or is that something that you developed over the course of your filmmaking experiences, or how do you learn to make those kinds of changes in plans?
Well, I think for a documentary, I think things going wrong is what you want to happen because that's story. A lot of the scenes that we thought were very compelling, my co-director was able to actually film Karzai, the president, at the press conference, and one of our characters, the photojournalist, capturing that moment, and we were elated. We couldn't believe that she got in. It was she snuck in basically, and she got to be in a section where they thought she was a photographer even though she was running video. So it was very compelling footage to us. We were so excited. She got to film Karzai, film Karzai, but nothing happened. Nothing happened in the scene, and it ended up being cut from the film because although it's very compelling to us and the access, and we were so proud of ourselves, it's way more compelling with the things that went wrong, the access that got denied, than these things that we were proud of ourselves for getting. So every time something went wrong, those are actually all of our climaxes of the film.
I mean, for me personally, I was in the Army. I went to West Point, and I was a captain in the military, so everything goes wrong. It's the military. So you have to adapt and overcome. You have a plan, and shit's going to happen. And then you have to make sure that you continue on with the mission. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I tell people I was in the military, and they're like, oh, you're a filmmaker? That's so different. It's the best training. You want to make movies? Join the Army for a while. Get some good stories, meet some true characters, and learn how to adapt and be resilient and overcome, and so all that, my military background really, I mean, things went wrong. I can't even begin to, the hospital story is just the tip of the iceberg with getting kicked out of locations and cops, and that's a great stall story. I love it because, and great producers, I'm the writer-director, but great producers are like that. They're able, and they keep it from the director, like you said, that's the best, because after we wrapped at the wrap party, my producer's like, so guess what happened? We weren't supposed to be here. They told me everything that they had kept from me. They're kind of like, parents, or my parents. All right. No.
I would just say, I always say pre-production. It's kind of what you plan for before you start shooting that really makes a big difference. And the other thing is just not to overreact. No matter what happens, you can't show it here. You could be dying inside, but you just have to play it like, well, that's not so bad. And I had similar things happen in Paris where I was shooting a show for Discovery Channel. And we were outside the Louvre, and we knew we would get caught. It was just a matter of getting the scene done in time. But it was very loose, and we didn't have to worry about lights and stuff, so we managed to get that done. And challenges will automatically come at you no matter what you're doing, especially because you're involving communities and people going by, and your crew and your cast. So things are going to come up. But if you can stay level-headed and just think about opportunities, very often struggles they force you to think creatively outside of the box, which is often more interesting than maybe even what you had on the paper.
Yeah, I would just ditto everything about welcoming disaster. Disaster is your friend. One door closes, another one opens, and I think it also you should always be rediscovering what it is you thought you were doing. If you go in, you have to have some idea of why you're there and what you want. And then you've got to be ready to remake the story moment to moment. There are two other things I would say about just sort of what preps you for that. I mean, in my case, I had started out as a documentary film editor, although I was actually making films almost as soon as I was editing them. But I think when everything that everybody did right or everything that everyone did wrong comes down on your table, you learn a tremendous amount about improvising and creating story out of what other people thought were just the side issues or the leavings or the non-story. It's like the negative space is often where you go much deeper, and that's where the real story is. The other thing is I'm a member of the Actors Studio. I've done a fair amount of theater, and I've worked improvisationally a lot, you know, as a director with actors. And I think the whole habit of, again, welcoming the unforeseen as your greatest tool is something that, yeah, you know, fear, panic is also your friend, you know. Yes, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then it comes to you, or then you follow one path and something else is revealed to you. You've got to be ready to take the leap. And I think the more pre-production you do, the better prepared you are for anything that might happen. But there's always going to be stuff that happens that you couldn't foresee. And in the case of defying authority, that's also very important. When we were in Manipur, I had a Manipuri crew. We were only there. They did not want film crews in Manipur. I mean, there's been until very recently, a big blackout on camera crews and people being there. So we were technically only there because we were there with the baseball story, and again, maybe we'll talk about that. But I went everywhere with my Manipuri crew, separate from our military guard. We had a military guard with us. And you have to be relaxed about that. You don't say anything to anyone. You just, you know, leave somebody on the ball field who's filming and go off and get in there with the people who live there, and that's where the story is. So
I think the biggest challenge for a producer in regards to challenges is when you're the director and you realize the elephant won't fit in the room and you choose to go with the tiger. You know, it's your vision and you can adjust that vision. When you're the producer and the elephant doesn't show up but there's a tiger available, you have to then present that to the director in such a way that the director is like, okay, I'll take the tiger. And you know the director's moving a mile a minute in his mind or her mind, and there's, you know, you're just so if you want to know what in my mind what a producer really needs to do fundamentally to be able to work with challenges, in addition to being able to be loosey-goosey and figure out alternatives and so forth, is have a really deep trust with the director, or have the director deeply trust you, so that the moment where they have to switch their vision, there's nothing in there spent around ego. And they trust, they already know that if you didn't bring the elephant to the table, it's because the elephant died of diphtheria and there's only a tiger, and she or he has already made that adjustment in their mind. Because if the director decides, I want that elephant, and they're really, you know, they essentially stopped making adjustments because they feel like they didn't get what they wanted from you, and that's your job, is to give the director whatever the director wants. That's, to me, that's my job. So trust is a super, super, super big factor in being able to make adjustments on set as a producer. Now, if you're the producer-director, you don't have that dialogue. So that's great. But if you're the producer and you're working on a fairly complex shoot and you have this relationship, you got to make sure that the trust is there before day one. And a lot of that's pre-production, but a lot of that is also producerial skills of team building. And that speaks to the whole crew thing. You know, as a producer, my crew, my gaffers, my grips have to trust me as well. They have to trust that I'm leading this boat. I'm not designing the boat, I'm not building the boat, but I'm making sure that the boat's going to get to that island and not some other nation that we don't even know about. So everybody on the set has to really trust me, and fundamentally it's got to be the director first. And by the way, the Army is a great place to learn how to be a producer, but so is being a mother. So if there are mothers out there, no problem.
I think it's Jean Renoir, I think, said once that you have to leave the set open to the outside world and not close the set to the outside world. But it's easier said than done, because especially when you film fiction, you normally try to to anticipate everything, and you have your producer who is trying to protect you from accident, from the unforeseen and all that. So I think it's not only a matter of welcoming the outside world, it's also a disposition that you have to have and things that you have to do so that you can be in a situation where the outside world come and influence your film. And one of the things that we did on the Invisible Collection is that I mixed actors and non-actors, and non-actors are very good to let the outside world enter into your shoot, because they don't have the typical reaction, and they are not trying to protect you from anything. So that's one thing. The other thing is that on a regular basis, and I have a very trustworthy relationship with my producer. On a regular basis, I will change during the day the shooting schedule, and we will go to another location close by. I mean, nothing crazy, but just to challenge things a little bit. So these are small things, but I think they do help and make concrete the fact that you need to be open to the outside world.
Yeah, I was touched by what you were saying about the role of the producer. I think, to me, I've always felt like the core of a narrative story, at least, is the world of the actors, the fictional world, and that our job as directors is to wrap ourselves around that and protect that and make that absolutely inviolable. But then the producer is in turn wrapped around us and protecting us from reality. So it's nice to hear your perspective as well.